Heyo.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, you sound really good tonight.
All right, awesome. Because my headset and Discord have not been getting along today.
Oh no.
No.
Oh, it happens. I know I've been fighting with Discord because I really don't like the angle of the camera when I do the debate stuff. And there's no you can't really control it much. So I figured out a way to loop it through Streamlabs, but if I do that, then I can't have all the cool little things up, all the widgets up because it'll show up on their stream too. So,
Yeah.
the work continues.
Yeah, it's a conflict issue. That's why I kind of prefer StreamYard over Discord when it comes to stuff like this, because StreamYard tends to function better with OBS than Discord does.
Oh, really? I have
Yeah.
I'm new to all this stuff, so that's something that I will take under advisement as I build out a little bit here. May need to invest in some
Yeah,
time to
because the
download
cool
that
thing
and figure it out.
the cool thing with StreamYard is that you can actually customize it too. So you can put like your banner and everything in the StreamYard and you have a lot better control in StreamYard. You can do a lot more customizations with it and everything. You can set up like order on the screen of how people are set up on the screen, or if you want to pull up like another window or something, you can do that in StreamYard as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it just like when it comes to like group chats and stuff or group calls, I find StreamYard works better than Discord does for that kind of stuff, especially with OBS.
Right on. I just might have to do that. More projects this weekend. I'm
Mhm.
chalking them up. I got things to do. I'm ordering
Based.
those filters this weekend too. I have not forgotten about that. I'm eager to try that.
Yeah, it's really crazy because my boyfriend was having an issue where, because he uses a rig, big rig, and he was coughing like a lot, like to the point he was like nearly throwing up. Um,
Oh no. Yeah, I know that
so
feeling.
he got the filters to try because we have Wild Bills here and they sell them here. So he picked it up to try it, and whenever he uses it, it pretty much like he might cough a couple times, but then that's it.
It's
Like
not nearly
half the
as
time
bad.
he doesn't.
That's nice. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna try it.
Yeah, and they
Mm.
they catch a lot of stuff too. Like it's crazy when you take the filter out and you see all the stuff that's in it.
You're like, well, that much actually still would have made it through otherwise, right?
Mhm.
So we were talking. You kind of wanted to jump into this a bit because last night on the panel with Prime, they were talking about a story where a teacher put up an LGBTQ flag in order for the children to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, I want to pull up the story because there is some nuance that I didn't get when I first heard the story. Um, and
Yeah, I
I
feel like there were some parts missing
and
to
I
this
think
story.
yeah, and I think it is important that we get that because part of what was said. Hold on, I'm gonna just move screens. Neither one of us are on there anyway, so I'll put that to the side. And I'm gonna bring the story up. Let's see. Okay. Oh, Mike's in the room. Mike's in the room too. So here's the story. English teacher Kristen Pitson is being investigated by her California school district after a TikTok video went viral of her joking with a student about pledging allegiance to the pride flag rather than to the American flag. Pitson, a teacher at the Newport Mesa Unified School District, posted the video on her own TikTok account. It has since been deleted. In the video, Pitson begins, okay, so during third period, we do announcements and they do the Pledge of Allegiance. I always tell my class, stand if you feel like it. Don't stand if you don't stand if you feel like it. Say the words if you want. You don't have to say the words. So my class decided to stand, but not say the words. Totally fine, except for the fact that my room does not have a flag. Pitson noted that she took her American flag down in her classroom because it made me feel uncomfortable during the COVID-19 pandemic, but hasn't located the flag. My student today goes, hey, it's kind of weird that we just stand and we say it to nothing. In the meantime, I tell this kid, we do have a flag in the class that you can pledge your allegiance to. And he looks around and goes, oh, that one? Pitson imitated her student pointing to the rainbow pride flag. Pitson has faced backlash mainly over social media, with people taking issue less with her suggestion for the LGBTQ flag and more with her tone toward the American flag. One Twitter user said, nothing against the pride flag, but we lost 13 servicemen and women a few days ago for that flag. Respect it. So, that's the story. I'm a little bit interested to know what made her feel uncomfortable about the American flag during COVID-19 that made her take it down. It seems
uncomfortable with the fact that she doesn't know where the flag is.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of weird. Like, if you took the flag down, how do you not know where the flag is? That's kind of weird.
I agree. That is very weird. Let's see. I'm trying to see if there's another story that maybe has a little bit more information on why.
So it's not an actual video of the kids pledging allegiance to the flag. It's her just discussing it with the class.
Yeah, it seems like in a joking kind of manner, not necessarily trying to, coax anybody into actually saying the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, but I think, in reading the article, it sounds like it was more than just, you could say it was, oh, it's in bad taste. 13 military men just recently died. But ultimately, I don't know that I would go so far as to, completely and totally reprimand her over that. I don't think it's I think timing, could have been better, and who knows, maybe that wasn't something she was aware of. Maybe it hadn't gotten into her orbit yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's a number of things around that, but like you were saying yesterday, I think having better civic studies and actually, because when I was in school, we actually were taught the Pledge of Allegiance and what it actually meant line by line. Like, we broke down every little line and we actually talked about it and what it meant and why we say it.
Based.
Yeah, and
like they don't do that in schools anymore. In schools now, like especially when I got into like I think it was like middle school, high school, they stopped doing the Pledge of Allegiance altogether. Most schools don't do it now.
Wow, that's crazy. I know here in Arizona they do. It's they're pretty intense about it. There's a strong bit of nationalism here that way, where it's very much like America or F you, that's kind of the rules of the road, you drive around and there are guys with pickup trucks with the giant flags hanging off the outside of them,
Oh yeah, I saw a crazy video off of TikTok where the massive 100, 200 foot American flags that they usually put on like dealerships and stuff.
Yes.
Some dude had that hooked up to the back of his pickup and was towing it around a suburban neighborhood. I was like, the fact that your truck can even carry that flag and you not lose control is amazing. Because those flags are massive and very heavy.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I'm not big on the whole. I think that an element of reverence for our country is great, but I wouldn't say that I'm like overly patriotic or nationalistic or anything, but what I will say is if you really care that much about the country and the flag and all that, sticking that giant flag on the back of your truck is outside flag code, and that should mean something to you if you really care about the flag.
Like there's a lot of codes that come to the American flag. There's actual like literal laws that come to the American flag. Like we have laws for them, but a lot of people misinterpret those laws, especially the one where it says the US flag is not to be worn as an article of clothing. A lot of
Right.
people think that, well, if you print, if you have a t-shirt that has the design of the American flag on it, that goes against that law, and that's not true. It's like if you take a literal American flag and you like wrap it around your waist or something and are wearing it as an article of clothing, that is against the law.
Right.
You can't do that. It doesn't mean like you can wear like pictures and stuff of it. You just can't use like an actual flag.
Sure. Sure. And I mean, that makes sense. I don't know though, when I see when I see somebody like wearing American flag bikinis and stuff like that, sometimes I'm kind of like, really though,
Yeah,
like,
kind of like, I okay, I guess.
I mean, if you got the shirt with the American flag, okay, I get it, like,
Right.
but
Like there's nothing wrong with being patriotic, and showing support for your country. And I mean that's any country that you're in. And yeah, America has its issues. Every country has its issues, but at the end of the day, it's your home. It's where you were born and raised, and you want to support that. You want to support where you are and do everything that you can in your power to make your home the best that it can be.
okay. So my posit to you on this would be is that my argument is that I don't think that the Pledge of Allegiance should be compulsory. I don't think it should be mandatory in schools. I don't think you should have to do it. And I think that a lot of schools already don't make you have to do it. Um,
Yeah, I think there's definitely
but I also
exceptions
think I
to it.
also think if we're going like you were talking about, okay, like you were saying that when you were younger, you were taught what the pledge meant. Like they went through it with you, they explained it all to you. You knew what it meant coming out of that. And when you took that pledge, it meant something to you. My problem is that we're not teaching these kids civics enough anymore for them to know what that means. They
Right.
don't get the deep dive understanding. And it's not just that. Like, if you want to use this flag to unify people, we have to address the underlying issue, which is that most people have no idea how to be civically engaged. And it's like I said it before last night. It's not just from the federal level. I think a lot of times everybody's got a base understanding of things from the federal level, but they don't know how to deal with things that are happening in their own backyard. They don't know how to petition their local representatives. They don't know how to petition their town and city councils. They don't know who to reach out to assist with different things. When do you go to the state legislature? Nobody's given those civics education. So it's like my issue with like kids, especially kids that don't understand what the pledge is saying it, is that they aren't getting education to teach them to create the unity that pledge is supposed to provide. Right? Because it's like they were saying last night, the pledge came about after the Civil War as a means to try to re-enjoin our country, to pledge our allegiance to our country again, like a new birth, right? But they were also coupling that with a lot of outreach and education in civics and how our politics work. And we've lost that along the way. It's the one thing that we've lost. And I think, of course, I think it should never be compulsory, but I also think that if you are going to say it, I do. I think that there should be education that comes with it, and maybe like let's not have kids say it until they're old enough to really have a full grasp of what that means, inside and out. You know, like say put like have like a 10-year-old, you know, where you can at least they're at a level of comprehension where you can explain it to them. You know, trying to explain that to a 6-year-old, they aren't going to understand. You know.
Yeah, unless you're able to make it like super simple and basic, but even if you do it that way, you're gonna end up leaving out a lot of the important key elements to it because they won't be able to comprehend it yet.
You're
So even if you try to break it down super simple to where they can understand the basics of it, they're still not going to be able to fully comprehend its meaning.
right. Yeah, and that's my biggest thing is like without that comprehension, it's hard for me to want people to impose that on somebody, you know, because you wouldn't sign a contract unless you read it and understood it. You know what I mean?
Am I muted still?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to say based. You guys are doing great.
Oh, rock and roll.
But
Look at
yeah,
Mike.
like,
We heard Mike's voice.
I
Holy
know,
cow.
he actually
I
showed
just want to
up.
say Team Jason. Sorry.
Anyways, yeah, because when I learned about like we fully broke down and learned the pledge by the time I was in 6th grade.
And that's a
my
good
civics
age. Like, I
teacher-
mean, knowing it at that age is great. I think that that's a great age for, you know, learning about kind of the foundations of our country. You know, you can definitely get a base knowledge to really have a grasp on what it means by that age. 100%. I agree with that.
Yeah. And our civics teacher, he was a really cool guy. He was super funny, and he taught us like I've never had another civics teacher or even history teacher that taught us at the level that he did. But like we all sat down and we discussed like line for line what the pledge meant, why we say it, why it was created, what its purpose is. So then we can understand that when we say it, what we're actually saying. Because nowadays, and even watching that debate, there's a lot of misinterpretation and misunderstanding of what the Pledge of Allegiance actually means and what you're saying whenever you say that allegiance. You're not pledging allegiance to the country. You're pledging allegiance to the flag and what it represents. You're pledging allegiance to the people who live under that flag, who serve under that flag, and who die under that flag. That's what you're serving allegiance to the people. You're serving allegiance to the people of America, not the government.
Sorry to rudely interject, but I just want to give a shout out to SecHat _ you're a real one, Team Jason.
This is what we get when we let Mike turn off his mic or turn on his mic.
It's on, right?
It's on. It's on.
Okay, Jason. Do you have a response to that?
I do. So I understand the tenets of needing unifying elements within our country, right? And I understand that the pledge can serve on a base level as a unifying element or institution within our societal structures. I think the thing for me is it's always been more I'm not really in disagreement with you about the elements of what you're speaking to about what the pledge represents. Mine is more having kids blindly say it, you know, and also explaining that the importance of, you know, the tenets of that pledge, and why it's important to be accepting of those who choose or cannot say that pledge. Like my example last night was like my relatives that are Jehovah's Witness. would be totally sacrosanct for them to do that. Like,
Right.
because their
And that's why I
allegiance
said
is only to God, you know?
exceptions to it. Like there are some people who can't say it because of religious belief. They could be foreign exchange students, so they might not even, be from the U.S. They could just be visiting here to receive a better education. And if they don't want to pledge allegiance to the flag, that's okay. Like, but definitely I think it's good to say it, but you have to
Mhm.
say it and have an understanding of what you're saying. Because if you're just blindly saying it, then you're not going to understand the
Based.
context of what it is that you're saying, and you're going to grow up with a misunderstanding of what it represents and why we say it in the first place.
Yeah, and then you're just going through the motions, you know?
Right.
And it loses its reverence. And sometimes I wonder too, like, I mean, think about this. If you say that every day, you know, all through school, okay, and it's at least when I was in school, it was every day. And does it lose some of its reverence at that point? Like, what if you said it? What if you said it? You know, when there were special national events, like you say it. You know, when you hear about in the instance of the 13 soldiers dying, you know, you say it when the 13 soldiers die. You say it when there's a point of reverence. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand the quickness to want to say it every day. And
Well,
I
the
guess
point
to
of
me,
saying
that's
it
kind of
every
the,
day was to serve as just a reminder. It was to drill it into your head because it was used as a reminder to remind you essentially of, in basic terms, what your duty is as a citizen, and that's to pledge allegiance to the people of the U.S. and to serve your duty of making sure that the country remains indivisible with liberty and justice for all and stays as one nation. That's why you say it every single day. It's to remind you of that, and that we the people are not going to let that are not supposed to let that happen. It is happening and has happened, unfortunately, but it's because we lost meaning behind that pledge and what you're saying. And because a lot of people don't see it anymore, or a lot of people don't understand its meaning and what it is, we've lost that. Now our nation is very much divided, which it's not supposed to be. Um, we're kind of losing a grip as being one nation because now we have states that want to actually separate from us and become their own nations. We don't have liberty and freedoms anymore, and not everyone is served justice
well,
because we've lost the meaning of that pledge. We've lost what it means to say it, and we've lost the meaning behind of what we're supposed to do as American citizens and what our country is supposed to be and represent.
I think there are definitely some elements to what you're saying. I do agree with. I do think that we're a very divided country right now. I do think, and we've talked about this before. We have to find consensus. Okay, like, you know, you have people that will come in and they'll for instance, like our streams, right? Like, I get people that come in and raid our streams, and they're here to stoke fires and just you know, raise the heat. But when it comes down to actually trying to get down to brass tacks, how do we make this country better? How do we change things for the good? How do we make sure everybody's protected and helped out and taken care of? They can't do it. They can't do it. They can't have those rational, honest conversations. And, you know, to what you're saying, and I think really in this, in a lot of ways, I think we are of the same mindset. I may disagree about maybe the frequency or the way that we the way that our nationalistic tendencies can be sometimes, but overall, I think that there is nothing wrong with it. I don't have anything against saying the Pledge of Allegiance as a practice. I would note that I would take out the under God part because that wasn't there until the 1950s, and I think it does exclude people.
That was because of I can't say the word.
Evangelical
The
movement.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's just certain words I can't pronounce on certain days. It just happens.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
I just
Sure.
wanted to say that David_G_L in the chat is saying that the Pledge of Allegiance should be forced at gunpoint in every public school.
Yeah, I've been
Like-
watching him. He's just a troll.
Well,
He's
I
just
would,
trying to troll and get under people's skin.
you know,
He's
the
a-
thing is
He's a dedicated troll.
the
What do you guys think of that?
the thing is that, you know, if you care about our constitutional rights, then to force somebody to say the pledge at gunpoint would be a violation of our very first constitutional right, our right to free speech. So you can either say that you are for the right to free speech and allow people to choose whether or not they're going to stand for the pledge, or you can say that you are not for the right to free speech, and then people don't have a choice and have to say the pledge at gunpoint, which is completely authoritarian. That's like some DPRK stuff right there. I mean, you talk about communist stuff. That is straight communist type mentality right there. That's some scary stuff.
He's just a troll. He's not serious. I mean, come on. That would never fly here.
He's a bad
Yeah.
boy.
Yeah. Oh. See, this, like, I'm actually kind of sad because, like, trolls back in the day, like, used to actually be, like, really good at trolling. Like, they could actually, like, get people, like, taken off of platforms and stuff for the things that they say.
Yeah, or they
Trolls
could
now,
really
a lot of
gaslight
the
them.
stuff they say is so off the wall. You're just like, dude, that's not even like, it's not even like funny. It's not even like scary. It's not even like serious. Like, nah, it's just pathetic.
So maybe let's pivot for a minute, because I think that this is important, because, you know, overall we talk about the American flag, but what we're talking about, right, underlying all that is unity in this country, right? You know, so when we talk about unity in this country, what kind of damage do people that are trolls like this, or that stoke these flames, what kind of damage do they have to the political discourse? You know, sometimes I feel like we are fighting each other because there are people that have moneyed interests on both sides that are just funneling money into these people that will say the most radical, outlandish stuff possible, knowing that they're going to create a divide, and it does nothing but line their pockets and keep us all fighting each other for no reason.
Well, the big issue that we have with that is just, you know, one, lack of education. Like, our education, especially our public education system, is garbage. That really needs to change. We really need to work on getting our kids better education so they can be functioning adults in society and be able to see and understand that when they see things like that, what's actually being said and what the meaning is behind it, and to look over that and, you know, remember what they're actually supposed to be saying and doing in the first place.
Yeah, which is taking care of each other, right?
Exactly.
So see, we're not that far off with one another on that. I feel like we both agree that there needs to be better civics education. We need to invest in the right type of investments in our education. We need to make sure that we have programs that enrich, you know, our children to succeed in this world, because it's not just about learning algebra. It's about learning how to pay your bills. It's about learning how to lobby your local officials. You know, it's about learning how to create savings. It's about, you know, it's about those kinds of things, and that has become so lost. You know, it's like, well, you learned how to read and write and do math, so, you know, everything else, just go figure it out. You know.
Big problem too is that one thing that I don't like is now a lot of people are using schools children for their own political gain and movements, which I don't think is right, and I don't understand why school districts are allowing it in the first place. Like it's not, the kids need to be there to learn how to function as adults in society, but they also need to learn and understand the society that they live in and their rights and, the laws and the history and everything of our country.
Mm-hmm.
But
Agreed.
using schools as a political pivot for your own political and personal gain just isn't appropriate. You're bringing adult issues to children who don't have any comprehension or understanding of what these adult issues are. Like they're
A
not even old enough to to pay their own bills yet. They're not. Some of these kids aren't even old enough to dress themselves yet. Like, and you're
Well,
trying to, come forward with these kids about like if they, should or shouldn't wear a mask or, how they feel biologically inside and
source.
racial issues and divisions in our society and stuff like that. Like, I'm talking like little kids, like kindergarten to second grade.
right.
I don't think that's issues we should be bringing to them. They're just starting to actually get out of the house and really explore the world and interact with other kids and stuff. And when you start putting that kind of stuff in their heads, it's going to be a huge detriment to them as they get older. Because now they're only going to grow up with one way of seeing the world or one way of thinking. They're not going to be able to think for themselves. They're not going to be able to look beyond themselves and what's being told to them and to do their own research and have their own understanding and see what's actually going on, not what someone's telling them.
Right. Well, and I can see like where you're at with it. Like, for instance, for me with the mask thing, it's a huge thing right now where I'm at in my district. We've been on the news 3 times because we've had such massive outbreaks. Our school district will not mandate masks, and my daughter's under 12 and she can't be vaccinated. So, we're running the gambit, every day of the possibility that she could go to school and come home with COVID, and that's really, as a parent, that's really concerning because my daughter does have lung issues, and there are people in our home that are immunocompromised. So it's like, it's a perfect storm. But the alternative is if I say, okay, fine, I'm not going to send her to school, then it's an online academy that we tried it. Okay. They've put no money into it. It's horrible. The education is horrible. My daughter was going through it like all we're doing is playing games all day. She's like, I want to learn something. She wasn't getting an education. So what do I do for my kid? Like, I have to send her to school to, risk getting sick. Plus, on top of that, I can't stay home and facilitate educating her and work my job too. That's a part of being a single parent, So for me, and like for my real lived situation, like masks and vaxes and stuff like that are really important because the potential that, my child gets sick is greater, and the people that I'm in the vicinity to getting sick is greater. Now, see, I already had COVID, and I thought I was going to lose my life. I was waking up gasping for air. I couldn't breathe. I didn't have medical insurance at the time. Couldn't go to the doctor. I was at home with 110, 111 degree fever. I was sweating through my sheets every 20 minutes. If it weren't for my fiance at the time having a nebulizer with albuterol that was actually prescribed to her, for her asthma, I probably wouldn't be here right now, So for me, as somebody who's been through it and then lost 2 family members and has another one that's now on oxygen for the rest of her life, for me, it's very personal because it's not just a philosophical thing. It's a practical thing. I've seen what it is to try to have to survive this. And I've seen what it is for other people not to survive.
And it's to me it's the irresponsibility of the school district, because part of the school district's responsibility is to make sure that not only are your kids being well educated, but that they're also being protected. It's the school's responsibility to make sure that those kids are safe. So by the school not wanting to have, vaccinations done for kids who are able, and not having kids wear masks who are able to, the school is technically violating its own duties.
My sentiments exactly. And that's exactly what I told the director of elementary education for my daughter's school system. He did not like talking to me. He did not
Of
like
course he
talking to
didn't,
me.
because that's the thing. They don't like having, they don't like, people don't like taking responsibility for things nowadays. People don't like to take responsibility for their actions. They want to blame everything on everything else instead of just accepting the fact that, hey, I fucked up and I need to do better.
Yep. That's one, Deb.
That's a huge problem that we have. Look, you can have your skepticisms and stuff, but there's no reason for you to be putting other people at risk or at danger because of it.
Right. Well, and my
Based-
my thing is, and kind of in agreement with that, is that, I mean, it doesn't hurt anybody to put a mask over your face. Like, maybe you can't get vaccinated, but it's not going to hurt you to put a mask on. I promise, it's really not.
And even if you honestly, like for me personally, I prefer face shields over the mask, because
Sure.
I don't like wearing the mask, because the masks bother me. Because of the shape of my nose, it actually pinches my nose, so I actually can't breathe properly. So I prefer a face shield because, one, you can actually see my face, and two, it allows me to have unrestricted breathing.
Well, and
So that
yeah,
I
but
don't
you're
have something
still
pinching my nose.
But you're still doing the mitigation stuff. You're still taking that initiative to cover to
Right.
protect yourself and other people, And I mean, that's the thing, is you're at least willing to do that, Like, I mean,
Right.
the fact that
And
somebody
like-
would be so
like,
stupid as to not wear it, like, it's like, come on, man. Are you
There's
what the hell,
alternative
dude?
solutions to these issues. It's that the problem is people don't want the solution. They just want to bitch about the problem. That's it. And that's why it's a problem, because they're part of it. They're part of the problem. If all you do is complain about the problem but you don't do anything to fix it, you're part of the problem. I don't know what to tell you.
That's
The
true.
truth.
You are 100% correct. You are 100% correct.
I just say that I'm pro mask. I like looking like I'm a Mortal Kombat character.
I was gonna say, like, the whole ninja look is really cool. Like, there's some pretty cool ones
Dude.
out there.
Hell yeah! I don't want to see your ugly face. Put on that mask. Okay, Jason, what's your response?
To what?
I don't know. I'm just trying to act like a mod.
My response is, I agree.
Cool,
We
alright,
built a
great,
consensus.
awesome. You guys haven't disagreed at all. What kind of debate is this?
So what about the breathalyzers are now required in newer vehicles?
So, my my take on this, okay, if you're gonna have laws that outlaw drinking and driving, then put them on the cars. If you're not gonna have laws that outlaw drinking and driving, then don't put them on the cars. But stop letting drunk people make the decision. Like, that's my take on it.
Here's my thing. If you are a person who has a history of having an issue with drinking and driving, and you've been, pulled over or cited for driving under the influence, then yeah, I feel like it's appropriate to put something like that on their car. I don't feel like it's appropriate to make it mandated for everyone to do in all vehicles, because you're taking away people's ability to govern themselves. It's like the government saying, well, because these people are too irresponsible to govern themselves, we will now govern everybody. It takes away your choice and your ability to be able to make your own decisions, even if you're not even doing anything wrong.
Well, I feel
You don't
like
even get that choice now. Now the government is making that choice for you,
I feel like
whether you are doing anything wrong or not.
if you're in public transit, I think if you're in public transit, right, where you're going to be around a large amount of people, I would say that, at that point, it's in the interest of public health. But yeah, like if you're in a car by yourself, whatever. Like, I don't care if you wear a mask or not. Maybe if you're delivering food or something to somebody, there might be a case that you could make for, well, you don't want to, potentially get germs on the food, but I mean, you're handling it already with your hands. So, I mean, I
Are
don't
you
know that
talking
that's going
about
to
the
change
mask or
anything.
the breathalyzer?
Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. I'm breathalyzer. Sorry. I'm going back and forth. See, this is what happens. It's the dabs. But the breathalyzer thing. Okay, so here's my take on it. Like, I speak in hyperbole, but come on, like, if you're gonna have these laws that are supposed to restrict drinking and driving, then why? Then okay, so then if somebody gets in their car and drives drunk, then by virtue of that, there is, there's like some culpability there, right? By the car manufacturers, by the state, because they left it up to a drunk person to decide that they're going to drive. So that's why I say, like, either put them in the cars and say, okay, there's laws against drinking and driving, or get rid of the laws on drinking and driving and make it a situation where, well, if you get in an accident, you're fucked. You know what I mean? And call it what it is.
That's pretty much how it works now. Because, yeah, we have laws against drinking and driving, but remember, you're innocent until proven guilty. So, unless you're either in an accident or an officer catches you and manages to obtain evidence to prove that you're driving the influence.
Oh, but here they used to just sit outside the bars and wait for you. Like, I mean, there was.
They used to do that. They used to do that when I lived in Leopold. They used to do that too. Anytime we would have a major event at the town hall, there would be a sheriff sitting out there watching people leave.
Yep, just waiting for him to come out and say, hey, and that's what they would do. So, I mean, again, this is my lived experience. I'd have to look up stats on it, but I'm sure that there's a lot of police officers that do the same thing, and that's a very common practice.
Yep. But for me, it's just I don't like having my choice to be able to self-govern myself taken away.
Yeah, and I get that. But I think the laws need to be adjusted for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that I think,
like I was saying, if you have a history of, having DUI or being involved in an accident because of a DUI or something, then yeah, put the device in their cars. Like they actually in Europe already has this. Europe has had this for years, where they have devices that they'll put on your car. And you have to breathe into it, and if you blow above a certain point, your car will not start. You can't drive it.
But we have that.
It's been in Europe for decades.
We have that here too. Believe me, I had one more than once.
What do you guys think about HUIs? Hentai under the influence.
Oh my god.
I mean, like, I don't want to drive a car and have it so that they detect the tentacle. Jason, you could definitely speak to this. Go ahead.
Hentai under the influence, it's a dangerous thing, and it's something that we're going to have to deal with because, those tentacles, they get really crazy when you're trying to drive. It is a health hazard. You need to be careful about that, Mike.
HUIs are a real thing, honestly. What do you think about that, Lucy or Doody, whatever?
I think you might have a problem. That's what I think.
Jason definitely has a problem. You're right.
Yes. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know. Like, obviously, I don't particularly like. I don't think it's a great idea. It's not necessarily. I smoke weed every day, So like for me, having a device that checks your
Smoke weed every day.
there it is, that checks your
I got you.
that checks your toxicity levels. I mean, it could just as easily end up being how much aspirin did you take? Like how much weed did you smoke?
Right,
Like
but it's like,
it could
if
be
we're gonna
everything.
implement this, if we're gonna implement this, how far is it gonna go? Are we then
Exactly.
gonna say people who have medical conditions can't drive? Are we
That's
then
what I'm
going to say
saying.
people who take prescriptions, medications can't drive?
They do
What if I
though.
take
Like
They do though now.
that's a big
True.
issue with it. Like there's, it's like where do you draw the line? Because once you start taking one personal freedom away, they're gonna slowly start taking all of them away.
Hey,
I'm not
What it-
advocating for people to drive under the influence.
No. That's
But
not
I'm
what we're
also
talking
not,
about.
yeah, but I'm also not
I
going to
am.
advocate
I'm
for
kidding.
having people's personal freedoms taken away because of a few bad apples in the bunch.
Right. We just
Based.
need to make sure that we take care of those bad apples. But overall, I do think it's a sketch idea. I like to exaggerate a little bit, but it's definitely a sketch idea. I don't know that. I mean, here would be kind of my thing. Is the government seeing this reporting? Or is it just my car being like, it's not going to start? You know what I mean? Either way, it's not a great thing. I'm not saying I would want it, but there are questions that I have. You know what I mean?
Right. And
Like,
it depends on how technical they are about it,
yeah.
Is it just going to be my car doesn't start, or is it going to be like it's sending this information to somebody else?
Yeah, is it a police state situation where I'm getting tickets in the mail for trying to start my car drunk in my driveway? Then hell
Not
no,
only that,
hell
but, like, when you have
No.
people with medical conditions where their liver actually produces the enzymes that are in alcohol, and so when they do a breathalyzer, it picks it up that they're intoxicated even though they're not. You have that issue too. I mean, there's not very many people who are like that, but there's enough where that could be an issue for them.
I think there's some instances where that occurs with diabetics too. I think so. Like it's not unheard of, and those are considerations that I would hope that they would be looking at if they're developing that kind of technology. Again,
That's why I
a
say
super-
it would be better as like as a limited technology, not something you should just slap over everyone. Because I don't know about you, but I would hate to have to get in my car and have to do that every single morning when I'm just trying, to start my car to go to work. Because my car already takes a few seconds to even start it anyways, because there's a whole process I have to go through to start it now. Now you're just adding even more to that process.
okay, so what if it was an option on your cars? What if, let's say, I'm a business owner, okay, and I have a fleet of trucks, and I want to make sure that my drivers aren't driving drunk.
Right.
Like, is it okay then? Like, if it's an option from the manufacturer to say, hey, if you want this on your car, we'll install it as part of your original build on your vehicle.
I feel like as a business owner, that would be reasonable because, you don't want that liability put on you if they are.
It's- And I would say, especially in an industry
liability
where that might be
reason.
more prone, right?
Yeah.
So see,
And besides, I mean, most businesses, especially manufacturing businesses, like here, if you're involved in any type of accident or incident, you are drug tested immediately.
go to Concentra. That's what they call it here.
True. Based.
So I see, and this is what I was talking about. What like this whole thing is all about. We're finding consensus even in our disagreement. We have found a way to find consensus on a lot of these issues. We're all not that far apart, and I think that's what we really have to remember. There are ways we can come together,
Oh.
But isn't that what it's about? Isn't that what it's about? Having these conversations so we can
Right.
find
You
consensus?
gotta have these conversations so we can find common ground, so we can work together to build society better for everyone, not just for our own personal or selfish gains.
Exactly. Exactly. Hitting nails on heads all over the place.
That's fucking based.
So based, bruh. So
Honestly, but that's why the party system was created in the US, was for this exact reason. It was so one side wouldn't have too much power, control, or influence over the other. Because imagine if
Based.
we only had a one party system in the US. Only that party and no other. Like what China has.
Oh no, a hard pass on that. I'm
Yeah,
for more parties. I think there should be more. I think we
exactly.
need multiple
We need
parties,
more. We need a lot more.
and we need like third and fourth parties that are very very strong and formidable. I think that's the biggest thing that's missing from the equation right now, is we have two parties that are under. Both parties are very large tents, but both parties, because they're so large, they kind of drown out some of the influence that people that are within those parties could have if they just had their own party. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like, yeah, like even when you go to vote now, like, yeah, they have a third party nominee on there early on, but they're usually gone within like the first or second round. And then
Yeah.
after that, you're only left with a Republican or Democrat. And it's been like that for decades now. We've only ever had in American history one third party president. You know who that was?
Lincoln?
George Washington. Our very
Carter?
first president. Our very first president is the only third party president we have ever had in the U.S. history. The rest of them have always been Republican or Democrat.
But
George Washington was a libertarian.
I'm going to take you to task on that for just a moment, because Lincoln, the Republican Party, was actually the third party when Lincoln ran. That was the founding of the Republican Party right there, because it was the Whigs before that.
Yeah, the Whigs. But yeah, I mean,
Based.
it's crazy that that's the
But
only two
again,
parties
his
we have.
dynasty created the big two, right? So to your point,
Right.
even though it was third party, it created the political mainstream that we're in right now,
Right.
which isn't good for anybody.
No, it sucks. And that's why I like the one thing I will say that I have liked is when we have a Republican president, we have a Democratic Congress and vice versa. And I think that's actually really good because, again, the whole point of having multiple parties is to create a balance from one having too much power over the other. And it kind of equalizes everything out.
I would like to see. I think that that's good in theory if both parties are acting in good faith.
Right.
I think in
Which
recent
honestly is really hard to do now because now whenever you have that, they're always voting against each other. Like, our president might try to do one thing, but the Congress says no and does another. And they're not really working together.
Yeah, and it's like there's a common refrain that I come back to a lot. Being a person on the left constantly eats itself, even. And I mean, that's the thing, is even in their own parties, they're encouraged not to compromise. And the minute they compromise, their own are cannibalizing them. How dare you compromise with the other side? You're not really one of us. You're a rhino, or you're a dino, or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
and that lack of willingness to find. Listen, I'm a leftist. I'm a market socialist. I'm probably always going to be that way. But I understand that even if I can't get that, I can find some consensus and some common ground to push at least a little bit further that way. Maybe there's somewhere to meet in the middle on certain things. Maybe there's a need that, somebody who's like, traditionally, fiscally conservative can see some value in, and we're able to find a common ground, fine, so be it. I'll take the common ground. If it helps move what I'm trying to do and what I want to do for the country, why would I limit,
Right.
Yes.
Right. And like I've stated before, like when it comes to the left and right, it's usually not just a straight left or right. There's usually a lot more subcategories that would technically be their own categories, but because of our current political system, you kind of get bunched under one.
Right.
You're either bunched under the left or you're bunched under the right. And
Well,
it's kind of ridiculous because it's like, well, they're not really, either. And especially with the fact that the Republican and Democratic parties are constantly changing. If you go back to Lincoln's time to the Republican and Democratic parties, they were very different compared
polar
to what they are
opposites.
now.
Yep.
Hell,
Polar
even
opposites.
even 50 years ago, they were completely different. Like
Mhm.
they're
Yes.
constantly changing all the time.
This is true. And we saw that in the Southern strategy, right? That's when we saw kind of this weird flip between, Southern Democrats who were traditionally state rights end up become Republicans. And a lot of that had to do with the civil rights movement, right? We know that, for example, the Confederate flag that you see them wave all over the place, that wasn't the Confederate battle flag.
Exactly.
That flag came out in the 60s as a part of the Dixiecrats movement, and their whole aim was to shoot down the civil rights bill that Johnson ended up signing into law, or the civil rights amendment rather.
That flag's ugly anyway.
And they use it as to show Southern pride, which the flag isn't for. If you want to honestly show Southern pride and where you're from, why wouldn't you use your own state flag
Yeah.
to show where you're from?
Yeah.
Like,
Why would you
like
use a flag of an enemy?
Beast.
right. Like, why wouldn't you use your own actual state flag to represent your state from the South and say, hey, I'm from the South, I'm from the state, and it was my home state. It's where I'm from.
Yeah.
Like, it annoys the crap out of me because you would not believe how many Southern Pride boys are up here in Michigan. And it's like, literally, 75% of you have never even been to the South, weren't born in the South, have never lived down there. Like, what the fuck?
You're like, bruh, you're in
You're
Union
fucking
country
Yankee,
right now.
okay?
What are you doing?
You're a Yankee. Get over it.
Right.
Fuck all Southern boys.
Oh man. There's one Southern guy I like watching a lot. Have you guys ever watched Trey Crowder? Oh, he's Trey, not Steven Crowder, Trey Crowder.
Is that his cousin?
No, he's this guy from the South, and he's like a super progressive guy. He's funny as hell. He is so good. He's like kind of a comedian, but he's also got great social and political commentary. Very left, Mike. You'd probably dig him, but yeah, he's cool, man, and he will drop some knowledge bombs on you. Like even Sekhet's talking about his fake hillbillies. I think they're referring to this thing that he had about fake hillbillies. So, but I would check him out. He's great. He is so funny.
Sounds based.
Yeah.
But,
Go ahead.
especially learning about the Civil War, because I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
That's where I grew up. Learning about the Civil War there was really weird because during the Civil War time, Missouri was technically a southern state, but because it kind of crosses that border and the fact that most of the upper states around it were all northern states, and then St. Louis is right on the Mississippi River, and right on the other side is Illinois, which was a free state. So even though technically Missouri slavery was legal in the St. Louis area, a lot of people didn't have slaves. A lot of the slaves were free because it was right next door to a free state.
Right.
So, most of your slave owners in Missouri were usually right down in the Boot Heel area, which is the southern area of Missouri, right where it touches why can't I think of my states?
Texas.
Tennessee, Kentucky, um, Alabama, and Georgia.
Okay. So
So it
very southern
touched
states.
all, yeah. So it was a southern region down there, so there were a lot of slaves down there. But in St. Louis was like one of the few exceptions of the state where a lot of slaves were free in St. Louis because of Illinois.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's kind of hard to be a slave state when you got the president's home state right above you being like You know, I'd imagine that could be difficult. I'm sure there
Yeah,
was a lot of political pressure, outside of other things.
yeah. Missouri's always been a really back and forth state when it comes to being Democrat or Republican. I would say for the most part, I wouldn't say they're full out Republican, but I also wouldn't say they're full out Democrat either. St. Louis is well, Missouri in general is one of those unique states, because of all the states around it. Because most states only have, like 2 or 3 states around it, where Missouri has, I think, like 9 states.
Yeah, fully surrounded.
Yeah, like Missouri's smack dab in the middle of the U.S. That's why it's called the gateway to the West. Um, because it's literally like smack dab in the middle of both east, west, north, and south. It's a weird state to grow up in.
Uh,
Because like depending on where you live in the state, your views completely change.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's interesting. That's Arizona quite a bit too, because we are. I mean, oh boy, we got some good old boys, but then you go into like certain parts of the city and stuff, and it's like totally different. Like, and I mean, there's been an evolution with Arizona. I think for going on for a long time. The change has been a long time coming. Um, but I mean, we've traditionally been more Republican. It's just somehow we get guys like, I mean, there was like, we had John McCain, who people called him a maverick, because he wouldn't always go toe the party line. He did what he thought was right. So we had a lot of guys like that. And, we always traditionally had politicians that kind of just went their own way, even with whatever party they were in. You know what I mean?
Right. Especially because Missouri is one of those states where you have two major urban cities, but then there's also a lot of very isolated areas in Missouri. So when it comes to creating like state laws, like Missouri is a constitutional carry state, and one of the main reasons why is because a lot of the different regions of Missouri are very isolated and rural,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of hazardous wildlife. And so because of that, and of course just, they're more of a conservative view type of state, but mainly because of that hazard, they wanted people to have constitutional carry because there's a serious danger of being out in the wild out there, especially further south that you go. Because you got mountain lions and cougars and bobcats and, um, of course, your deer and stuff. Bears. Rarely
Oh,
see
sure.
bears, but they are a thing there. Like there's all sorts of wildlife hazard you have to be careful of, especially snakes.
We get a lot of that out here in Arizona. I mean, the carry laws are very similar. You don't have to have a permit to conceal carry here anymore. You did have to have a permit for a very short time. I think it lasted maybe 2 years or something. And then they're like, "Yeah,
Michigan's
no, we're
moving
not
that
doing
way
that."
too. Michigan's starting to move that way where they're moving to pass no longer needing a permit for concealed carry, because right now we have a CCP, concealed carry permit.
Right.
So
Hmm.
essentially, in order to obtain that, you obviously have to pay for the permit, but then you also have to have like you have to have so many hours in like a gun training course. And of course, you have to pass it in order to even qualify to get the permit. But they want to move to constitutional carry because one big issue we have here is mountain lions because Michigan has a big deer problem. We have a really hard time getting our deer population under control. Um, and
I'd like to take
so
a trip up to Michigan.
Michigan, Michigan tries to use obviously hunting. Like when they get too bad, they'll give out like extra hunting permits to people to be able to hunt more deer
Sure.
to kind of help get the population back under control. But they also use natural deterrents, and the natural deterrents that they use are cougars and wolves.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with the wolves was the wolves were starting to get more into populated areas, and their numbers were actually starting to grow a little too fast.
Mm-hmm. We saw that
Because
here
they
with the
had a
silver
rich,
wolves. Mm-hmm.
yeah, they had a rich food supply, and they also work in packs. And we already have coyotes here, which are a problem for livestock. But now you got to deal with wolves. A lot of people didn't want to deal with that, so the state got rid of the wolves, and they put in the mountain lions instead. Because the mountain lions, they can control and monitor their population better, and they don't travel in packs, so they're not as dangerous as a group, especially when we already have pack animals like coyotes that we have to deal with. So I would much rather have the mountain lions than the wolves.
Right.
I can take on a mountain lion. I can't take on 9 wolves.
Right. Yeah. A little bit harder. A little bit harder.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm where I'm at with 2A is I am as a socialist. I do favor people being able to have gun ownership. I don't have a problem with it. Should there be a background check? It might not be a bad idea. Like I think that the consensus is pretty much across the country that there should be at least some kind of on some level a background check.
Right, because you don't want, known criminals and people like that to get a hold of guns because, but like the problem that we have is that a lot of the gun laws that we make are making it harder for people to obtain guns legally, not illegally, legally. They're fighting against legal gun ownership, not illegal gun ownership. And that's a problem, and there kind of needs to be a balance between where we're trying to keep people from obtaining guns illegally and people who shouldn't have guns. So why are we making it harder for people who do own them legally?
Wait, well,
It kind of doesn't make sense.
so like for me, I think okay, just get a background check as long as you come back good. Kind of okay. That's where I'm at with it. Um, are there certain guns I worry about being in the streets? There are, but I'm also of the opinion that like at least if they were purchased through a retailer, right? There could be some ability to trace that gun. There's a serial number, all that. If
Right,
if they're
there's
going through the black market, if they're going through the black market,
Right.
nobody knows who owns that gun and or who bought that gun or anything.
It's stolen.
Yeah. And so I kind of feel like, I mean, we live in a gun culture. We just do. And it's unfortunate. And and I'm very sympathetic to like school shootings and stuff like that. So I do think there should be some checks and balances. I think that if we can get background checks and get people to just go to the gun stores and authorize dealers so that we can keep track of what's happening, I think that's the most important thing we can do.
Like a lot of people get them from like gun shows and stuff, but even at gun shows, they're still documented and tracked. They still have to follow the same federal law, which you still have to have a background check. Then you have state law where you still have to take that registration into your local sheriff's office. Um, to have, turn it into them so then they know who is registered and who has a gun and who doesn't in the state.
Right.
So, which I personally just love the gun shows just because, like, there's just a lot of really cool shit besides guns in there. But
Right.
they usually have some really cool stuff and good food.
I used to go to the gun shows for knives, actually. They always had,
Yeah.
like, really, really cool knives. And so I'd go for those. I've owned 2 guns in my life, and I don't own either of them anymore. I just didn't need them, and they never got used, so I got rid of them. But, you know, I mean, one was a little 22 that my grandpa took me out with and, you know, learned to hunt with. And the other one was a 9mm that was given to me after, well, it was my dad's gun after he died. And I didn't have a purpose or a need for it. And my mom was moving up to the mountains, and, you know, you're talking about mountain lions. Well, you know, so she needed to have some protection up there. And I didn't think twice about it. You know, it's not one of those things that, I do worry about young kids getting guns. I do worry about school shootings. It's important to me that we do something. I think there can be a several pronged approach. I don't think that it all has to be an all or nothing type of thing, right?
Right.
I don't think that, you know, we have to create such stringent gun laws that people are no longer able to exercise their right. But I'm okay with definitely having some checks and balances, you know. Yeah.
Right. Well, the problem that we have too is that our standing military, you know, because we have a standing military, when it comes to the Second Amendment, it's difficult because the whole point of us even having the guns was to be our own militia. So we wouldn't need a standing military. We could defend ourselves in our own free state.
Right. In effect, the National Guard became what was to be our militia.
Exactly. But now because we have standing military branches in that, the US Army, the Marines, the Navy, and the Air Force and stuff like that, because we have those, it kind of it creates conflict with the Second Amendment and kind of took away a lot of our, you know, Second Amendment purposes. You know?
I can see some validity to that.
Right. So you have an issue now where it's like, well, now because we have a standing military, our citizens don't really have a purpose to owning guns except for exceptions for like hunting or dealing with protection from dangerous wildlife. But aside from those, you know, we kind of lost our purpose to them because we can no longer be our own militia because we have a standing military now, which we were never supposed to have. So when it comes to arguments about gun laws and guns rights, if you actually want to have full freedom of the Second Amendment, we have to disband our standing armies.
But
if we do want restriction access to the Second Amendment, we keep our standing armies, but now we have to limit ourselves to what we have access to.
But don't you think, like, I mean, because of, if you look at Americans today, could you really see us being organized enough to put together our own militia to actually combat another country's advanced military force? Like,
well,
I mean, we got a bunch of dumbasses in this country.
Exactly. Like, that's the problem. We can't do that anymore. We've lost that ability. And again, that's what I mean. Like a lot of Americans have forgotten what their duty and purpose was, and because of that, shit's kind of really backwards now. Like, if our founding fathers could see what America is today, there would be some things they would be proud of, but there would be some things they would be absolutely outraged over. They would be like, no, you're literally doing shit that we told y'all not to do, and you're doing it anyways. Why haven't y'all read a fucking history book? Like, what is going on?
Right. There's some truth there. Absolutely. Oh, yes, absolutely. You know, I mean, I am glad that we got past the whole slavery thing. That was probably like one of the best things we could have done at bare minimum, right? And hope that we get to a place where we're treating our indigenous brothers and sisters better, because I don't feel like they get treated very well even now.
Right. Especially when it comes to the government owning their lands and stuff, because that's a huge problem for them, because they don't own their own lands, they don't have the right to their own lands, and because of where they were put, they're put out in the middle of fucking nowhere. There's no jobs out there. There's pretty much no economy out there at all.
Well, they
They're
were
in the middle of nowhere. They don't even own the land that they're on, and the only money or assistance that they make is off of the government, which is next to fucking nothing.
Yep. Now, I will say some of the tribes have done better. Some of the tribes have done very well with the casinos and been able to make it on their own, and have a pretty successful, and
Yeah, there's
tribes,
some, there's
but
some communities that are doing very well for themselves.
they
and
had to
that's because they
overcome a
didn't.
lot. Mhm.
Right. But they also, because they didn't take the government's assistance either. They said, no, we're not gonna, we're not gonna have you own our land, and we're not gonna take your federal assistance because your federal assistance is shit and isn't gonna do anything for us. And instead, we're gonna go out, we're gonna buy our own land, we're gonna have our own businesses, and we're gonna make our own money.
Mm-hmm. And I just think, and I would hope that we get to a place though where they get some priority, because I really don't feel like that's probably the one group. I just don't think they get as much attention drawn to them.
Right.
And it's like, I appreciate the plight of everybody, but I mean, for real, we're all on their land.
Exactly.
We're all on their land,
Anyone, they really truly deserve, reprimandations. They truly deserve better treatment, especially from our government, because they're the ones that kind of took the fucking land from them, and then instead of giving it back to them, they're like, oh well, here's a plot that we bought that you can live on. It's in the middle of fucking nowhere, and we'll give you like $600 a month to live off of. Good luck.
But more importantly, the land, it wasn't fertile. That was
Right,
the key. They put them on barren land that they couldn't grow crops on or raise livestock on. So
Right, it's terrible. Some of the communities that they put them in, it's just awful, and it's like, why? It's still a thing today. Like, you can literally Google it now and see it, because I know a lot of people don't like him, but Stossel did a video like a couple months ago talking about it, how it's still going on and why it happened and why it's still happening, and was advocating for, like, hey, the government is like literally robbing these people, and somebody should say something, because mainstream media isn't going to talk about it. A lot of people on social media don't talk about it. So I don't totally agree with some of his political views, but I do think he does bring a lot of important issues to light that we don't think about.
I'm not.
We get so caught up in everything else going on that we kind of forget about this shit.
Yeah. No, and I think that's true. It's well, and I mean, just recently you started finally hearing about all these unsolved murders on the reservations, the murders of Native women, and how this has been going on for a very long time. There was not a country, there was a state in the United States that it was legal to kill natives up until this year. It was actually on the books. It was legal to kill natives up until this year. I want to say it was Montana.
Yeah, it's crazy. But that's the problem. Because everyone's so focused on a lot of all these other, especially minor issues, we're kind of not seeing a lot of the issues underneath that are actually way more important, that we should really be more focused on right now.
Well, we get caught up in the culture wars, and what will grab headlines and what will draw people in. You know, what will stoke rage, you know? I like to call it the rage media because I feel like that's what both the left and the right media have in common is they try to create false outrage, you know. And
Exactly.
you know, something that it just kind of dawned on me, you know, like um, there's a lot of people talking about, you know, whether or not Biden's being treated fairly or whatever, right? In the media. And you know, to that end, no, he's not. And to that end also, and believe me, this is going to be a hot take, but I don't think Donald Trump was treated fairly in the media either. I think there were things that he did that were really horrible that deserved us needing to talk about them and it needing a platform. The things that upset me that really didn't jive with me was when they would go after petty things. Like, oh, well, he wore this, or, you know, oh, well, you know, not some of the things he said were completely inappropriate, no question about it, and definitely deserve coverage. But there were things too where it was like, dude, like, come on, like, I mean, this is dumb, you know, you know, oh, Trump's hair flew, you know, a different direction. We could see that he has a comb over. You know what? That totally delegitimizes the conversation. If you don't like the guy, you just delegitimize the conversation by making that your statement. Like, that's the best you got? Really? You know? And believe me, I do not like the guy. I have such disdain for him. I think he's a horrible person, was a horrible president. But I like that stuff isn't changing hearts and minds. You know, and it's not helping the discourse. It just it poisons the well just a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Like I don't personally like Joe Biden either. I mean, like I have, honestly I haven't liked the president in a long time because like the only real presidents that I really remember up to was um I remember George Bush. I don't really remember Clinton that well. I do remember Obama, and then of course Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Um, I guess the main reason why I really remember George Bush was when 9/11 happened,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and seeing that on TV. That was like the craziest like experience of my life. It was so weird. That day was so weird for me. Because I know like a lot of people were in like, you know, different places and everything, and a lot of people like weren't even around when it happened, and I was young, but I was also, because of how weird the day was, it sticks out in my mind. Like I remember it very well. Like I couldn't like it's weird. There's some things I couldn't tell you about back then, but that was like the one memory I have when I was young that I distinctly remember, because on that day I woke up to go to school, and my dad, my grandmother, both of my uncles, and three of my aunts were all standing in the living room watching the TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing like what was with the Twin Towers happening on TV, but you know, at that time I didn't really have like a clear comprehension of what was like really going on.
Sure. Yep.
Because I was only 5 at the time, so like I couldn't really understand like the actual like dynamics of what was really happening. Um, but I remember I went outside, and the thing that stuck out to me most was I lived in St. Louis. St. Louis is a huge metropolitan city. So, you know, it's alive day and night. Middle of the day, no cars, no people, not a fucking sound. Dead silence.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it as the day of silence because that's what it was. It was dead silent that day. And when you live in a big city like that and you hear dead silence, it's like one of the most out of body experiences ever. It is so weird.
So silent, it's deafening.
Yeah,
Hmm.
like it was just so strange.
So yeah, when 9/11 happened, I think I was 20. I may have been 21, and I was driving home from a graveyard shift at Circle K, and I was listening to Howard Stern. And the way he positioned it at first, it sounded like a joke. Like it sounded like he was like doing a bit. You know what I mean? And as a matter of fact, all the way up until I got home and turned on the TV, I thought it was a bit. I thought Howard Stern was just doing a bit on his show. I had no idea that, like that was real. And
But
then
a
I
lot of
walked in
people
and it was
don't
like,
him now.
yeah, yeah, no, that whole thing did not bode well. It still did not age well. I just saw something on it the other day, and I was like, wow, that really didn't age well at all.
Yeah.
Like,
That's why I'm
so,
like surprised people even still listen to him, but I feel like a lot of people who do like didn't know like it was like after 9/11 happened that they actually started listening to him because I
right.
guarantee you if they listened to him on that day, they would be like, "Dude, fuck this guy." Like
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because like they even had like a mock reporter that was supposedly on the scene, and I'm sitting here like, when I flipped on my TV when I got home, I was like, that is so incredibly callous. Like really, how can you be so callous? Like, wow, dude. But I was never a huge fan of Howard Stern. I just sometimes every once in a while I catch it, and it just happened to be one of those mornings where it was just like it was on. I was, just a hurry to get home. I wasn't even thinking about anything but going to bed, because I was going to college at the same time too. So I'd come off my graveyard shift, get home about 6 o'clock in the morning, go crash out, and then wake up by 10 o'clock and get my ass to class, and go to college, and yeah, I would have never. If I would have just gone in and gone to sleep, I wouldn't have known until the next day. I would have just thought, oh, that was a weird bit that Howard Stern did. But yeah, no, I didn't watch or listen to him at all after that. Even the little bit that I did before, I was like, I'm good, man. I'm good.
Because I even like, I mean, I remember seeing it on TV, but like I said, like I couldn't understand like the actual like I don't know the word to explain it, but like I couldn't comprehend the scale of what was actually happening. Because, being that young, like I didn't know anything about Desert Storm, Desert Shield. I didn't know anything about Al Qaeda. Like I'd never even been to New York, so like I really couldn't understand the scale of what was going on. Like seeing the buildings on fire and everyone there and kind of freaking out, like I can understand like something really bad is happening, but for me, like I couldn't understand what it was till I was older. But even still, like I remember that day so well because it was so dead silent outside in the middle of this metropolitan city. It's like I've never experienced anything like that and have never experienced anything like that again. Ever.
Yeah, yeah,
Like I don't think we ever will.
yeah. I remember those days. Shortly after, because see, Arizona has one of the biggest communication centers for the military in the country, Fort Huachuca, and there was talk that there might be another attack and that they could attack Fort Huachuca. So people in Arizona were really pensive and were really nervous because they thought that there was an attack coming here, So
Right.
everybody was kind of on lockdown, kind of the same way. Like there wasn't a whole lot of people out like that day, and even the couple of days after that, it was just weird, Um, I do remember seeing a lot of people actually, mourn together and cry together and stuff, which was it's horrible that people had to mourn, but it was a heartfelt thing to see people come together across all sorts of different cultural and economic and religious backgrounds to just have this sense of unity, you know, in the midst of this horrible tragedy.
Right. And that's kind of one of the things that makes, America great because, in times of tragedy, we really do come together for each other, like regardless of our political position or views or anything, because in the middle of a situation like that, like you don't care about any of that shit. All you care about is, is that person okay? Like nobody wants to watch people die. Nobody wants to watch people suffer. Nobody actually wants to see that shit. So to me, when I see a lot of the bickering and arguing going on between people nowadays, I'm like, it's mainly just bullshit because when shit really does hit the fucking fan, people are there for each other no matter what. Like nobody cares about your skin color, nobody cares about your religion, nobody cares about your political view. We just care about making sure that people are okay.
Based.
So
It's true.
that's maybe how I see it. Like
Nailed it.
at the end of the day, all that bickering and stuff, it's just bullshit. It's all bullshit.
Yep. We've just got to learn to find that consensus, and we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. I think.
I think more people are honestly starting to, because a lot of the people that I see that can't are mainly like a lot of like older generations that they grew up in a time where that stuff was normal. But the U.S. is becoming more progressive. We are starting to move forward more than ever, and that kind of ideology is starting to die.
Yeah, I agree, and I think there are some fundamental things that even the right now can agree with the left on. I mean, I've been hearing more about the right speak out, and I'm not obviously I won't say all the right, but there's a significant number that are speaking out heavily against racism, that are speaking out heavily against homophobia. So they're out there, and it's starting to happen. And those are important things. That's an important area where if we can get there, if we can find common ground on those things, then the rest is I think is going to be much easier to fall into place. Because that deals with the core of our existence and our interfunctionality. Our functionality with one another. Rather, when we can look past some of those very basic things and get to what really matters. And that's
Right.
how do we take care of each other and how do we make the country work better for all of us?
And I mean, like, a big issue that a lot of people are having is that they just don't want to accept the fact that humanity is changing. Humans are changing, the world is changing, and it's changing in a direction that they can't really grasp because I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like the way we're changing shit is becoming a lot more complex.
Yeah.
Because back then, like back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, a lot of things were pretty straightforward. Things are starting to get a little bit more complex, and for some people, like they can't handle that or just don't want to accept it because they're like they can't understand it, like they can't wrap their head around all this shit that's going on because you go back just 20, 30 years ago and shit was way different.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Very
Especially
much
before
so.
social media and cell phones and stuff. That really changed a lot of stuff because now we're able to communicate with anyone from anywhere around the world in a matter of seconds.
Well, it's like I heard somebody put it one way. They said there is not any more police brutality than there was before. It's just now they're being filmed.
Yeah, it was Will Smith who said it.
And it's like he's right on the money. He's absolutely correct. It's
Right.
always been happening. It's just now we're seeing it, and I think that now that we're seeing it, it's in the public's conscience now. It's
Right.
it's on our tongues. We're talking about it. Whereas before it was easy. You didn't see it. You swept it under the rug.
Right.
You didn't have to deal. So it was kind of like, oh, maybe I heard about that. But but what did the police say? You know, because that was the thing. You know, you wanted to believe your neighborhood policemen, and you know they were the good guys. You know, and then it turned out that really they weren't being such good guys. You know.
Yeah. And it sucks. Like, it really sucks. Like, nobody wants to see stuff like that. However, at the same time, it's important that we do, so then we see and know what's actually going on, and we can set shit straight. Because, as citizens, that's our job. When we see shit that we don't like, we're supposed to fix it. If we see shit that we don't want to tolerate, then don't tolerate it. Like, say something. Tell them to get that bullshit out of here. Like,
Exactly.
that's part of your job as a citizen. And I know some people don't like it, but it's kind of like, we have to protect our freedom. We have to protect our freedom. We have to protect our police. We have to make sure that there's liberty and justice for everyone, for all.
That's right. Amen.
For our civil duties.
Church.
Church of Satan.
That's right. Hail Satan. Satan. All right, I'm gonna probably wrap it up tonight. It's almost 1:00 where I'm at. I know it's early in the morning where you are.
Yeah, but I'm a night owl, so I'm probably gonna stay up till it's only 4 a.m., so probably for another 2-3 hours.
Oh wow. Yeah, I have to be up super early because I gotta take my kiddo to school, and then I work shortly after that. But I love having these streams where we get to have this dialogue. I think oftentimes, we start out coming from different perspectives, but this is what we need, right? We need to be able to find this. We need to be able to find this consensus. And I think this is really good, this exercise. And hopefully others that, watch and hear us, have these conversations can see that, hey, like we're all not so far apart, we can come together, we can work together, and we can make big change happen.
Just have to be willing to do so.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, I'll let you hop off, and I'm going to hop off and close out this stream. But thank you so much. As always, it's always a pleasure to have you, Doody, Lucy, whatever you choose to call yourself today. And I will appreciate it 100% because you are awesome. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah.
Take care.